Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years. Hi, and welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community. I'm Mary Kate Karr-Petras, and I'm here today with Quilters Newsletter's creative editor, Lori Baker. Frequent guest, frequent participant here. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
On this side of the desk.
That's right.
So Lori is here today to talk about something that you may have noticed about our set here. If you look on the walls behind us, you may notice quilt blocks that have been framed, or actually mounted. And this was a project that was undertaken by other people on the staff. I did not participate, so I'm here to learn as much as anybody. I don't know how I got out of doing that day.
I don't remember.
But they all managed to take care of it while I was working on something else. But this is a really fun project.
It is, and lots of times, well, I recommend that you make a trial block. So lots of times you find that you've got a little bit of something that you need to fix before you do your whole quilt, but you've got this one block.
Right. Lori's a firm believer in that. Before you cut all your fabric to make a big quilt, you make one block first.
Right.
And test it out.
So we've got all these little orphan blocks running around, and you can't throw them away, so this is just a great way to use them. And like you said, they're wonderful decoration. Very easy to do.
So this is what the completed project looks like.
That's the project.
And we'll just kind of angle it up here so you can see nice finished edges.
And we start with just a canvas mounted. It's got pine, so it's real soft wood.
Okay.
The size of our finished block. In this case, it's a 10-inch finished block. That means my block right now measures 10 1/2.
Okay.
Because it's still got its seam allowances on it. So I've got my canvas.
And we should say we bought these, we bought these at a craft store.
Just at a craft store, yeah.
They come in packages, and they come in a couple of different sizes, but if you wanted to go to the trouble of mounting your own, stretching your own canvas, you could, but otherwise, you know, you might want to check out what sizes are available at the craft store.
Yeah, I know that we got 10 and 12, and there are other sizes of squares as well as some rectangles. So, so there are lots of possibilities. Then we've got our block, and I cut the strips for the edges at 2 inches by the length of the block. So this is a 10-inch finished, so 10 1/2 inches. So my strips are 2 by 10 1/2.
Okay.
And I am going to miter the corners, so honest to goodness, it's 10 1/2. I didn't say something wrong. So I've sewn the 2 of the strips on my block. And I always work with the block up so I can see exactly where I need to stitch, so my corners are going to match when I get all done.
Lori does not cut off corners.
No.
She does not cut corners.
So I've got the top and the bottom stitched on, and I'm going to stitch one of the sides, and I start at the stitching line right there. I don't go back to the beginning of the fabric. I start at the stitching line.
And as you'll notice, when you stitch these on the top and bottom, you allowed for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You started stitching.
That's correct.
Started and stopped stitching a 1/4 inch from each raw edge.
That's right.
Allow for that.
So I'm going to just stitch down that side, and the same seam allowances you'd always use on a quilt, which is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm using a straight stitch, nothing fancy. I am going to be careful when I get to this corner on the block that I do nail the corner exactly.
See, and I like watching you. I like watching you when you slow down because you are fast, and so it's very instructional for me that there are times when you do take your time.
Exactly.
And you do, and then you go pedal to the metal again when you can.
There's nothing hard about this. Now it's just straight sewing, and I'm going to stop at the stitching line. And just because this is going to get a little wear and tear here. I am going to backstitch.
Sure.
And that's all I need to do for that.
Yeah, even though that's going to be mitered, that particular corner is going to take a bit of tugging.
Yes,
you know,
that's
it's going
right.
to need to withstand a little bit of pressure.
And we don't want the stitches to come undone. So then we'd stitch the fourth one on exactly the same way.
Get that out of your way.
And this is how we want them. We want this corner there because we're going to miter the corners, and we'd just have to cut away all that extra fabric if we had the come out. So we're going to fold this. And again, we're going to stitch just from the stitching line, not from the edge of the fabric. And this is one of those places where I pin because it's kind of hard to get it all in position.
And you sew out to the raw edge here?
Yes, and I sew in forward. That really makes it better. I sew from the stitching line to the raw edge.
Okay.
And on this edge, it's not important. It's not going to take a lot of stress.
Right.
So I'm not going to backstitch. So that's what that needs to look like.
Do you trim any of that excess fabric now?
I don't. I don't. I usually manipulate it so it's open, so my seam is open.
Okay.
But just finger press, I don't even take it to the ironing board. I do want to make sure that that turns nicely, so I've got a pretty good corner there. It's not critical that it's exact square corner, but it needs to be pretty decent. And then you just repeat that process on the other three corners. So you've got everything mitered.
Nice.
And it ought to look something like this. I do go to the ironing board and press this seam just so it goes over that square edge nicely.
It'll help fit it probably a little bit better.
Correct.
Okay.
And then it's a simple matter of putting my frame in there and just kind of gently tugging everything into place. I want to turn it over and make sure that the edges are on the edges, and if they're not, it'd be better to have them go farther this way than farther this way. And then I just use my stapler from my desk. I mean, this is not even an expensive carpenter stapler or anything like that.
Desk stapler, standard staples. As you said, it's pine, so
it's soft. And I do a staple on opposite sides, and then I'm going to check it again to make sure I'm happy with the placement, and yes, I am. So then I can go ahead and staple up both of these sides.
So then you continue along, that's the side you've already started.
Right.
Before you switch to the alternating sides.
And at the corner, it's just kind of like when we miter our binding. I want that nice little 90-degree angle there. And I would do that same thing on this side. And then I'm just going to turn this, start in the middle again.
Okay.
That one didn't go in very well, but it'll be okay.
Yes.
And then again, check to make sure that everything's still nice and square and lining up evenly. And if it's not, it's easy at this point to just take out a staple or two and make it so you're happy with it. Let's do this corner.
Yeah, let's see how you miter that corner.
I'm just going to make that a nice little miter. at this point, I'm going to hang on to that and turn it over. And yes, that's pretty good, but it looks like it could be just a little smoother.
Okay.
And there, I like that better.
Good.
And I usually put 2 staples in on the corner, one out close to the edge and one up to the inside edge.
And then getting that nice and flat there will also help it lay flush against the wall.
That's right.
It'll help that.
That's right.
And then what are they hung on? Just nails? Just
nails, push pins.
So light that
they're really light.
Again, very fast, super cute. You know, I could see doing using this for like nursery wall art, or children's room wall art, or definitely your sewing studio or sewing space. Maybe you got to claim a corner in your house and you're like, this is mine.
Yes, exactly.
Notice the quilt blocks on the walls. This is my space.
Yes, my sewing spot.
Or gifts for people.
Great
gifts. If you know that the fabric is something that they would like and you're not into the idea of quilting it and making it a quilted wall hanging, this is, again, a really fast and stylish and personalized way to add some quiltiness to your home decor.
And so fast. We've already got the blocks laying in our sewing studios. So easy, easy.
Thank you so much. This was a great little lesson. We hope that you enjoyed it. And we look forward to seeing you next time at Quilters Newsletter TV. Take care. Bye-bye. Quilters Newsletter TV, the quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years.